Hello all. I am Lisa Schultz. I'm the Education and Training Director for the Women's Fund of Omaha. And if Rev Deb says show up with Sparkly, I'm there. So I am in it to win it. And I love this community. I love the vibe. This energy feels so good. I typically say my speech says I'm never more excited to be in church than when I'm at the Urban Abbey, and typically I'm like never excited to be in church. So thank you for welcoming me. I have a child church trauma myself, and this is just such a welcoming, affirming, safe, and brave space that I love to be in. But for years now, Rev Deborah McKnight, her team, and this space has served as an important partner for our work at the Women's Fund, and I want to talk about that. Urban Abbey is doing something really special and honestly very rare. They're stepping into complicated, often divisive spaces with a calm, steady kind of leadership that's grounded in grace and a deep sense of justice. They're not just showing up to check a box or make a statement. They're here because they genuinely care about people and believe that everyone deserves dignity and a voice. What makes them stand out to me is how they bring their faith into these conversations, not in a loud, performative way, but in a way that opens space for compassion, equity, and inclusion. They're changing the narrative around what faith-based leadership can look like in politics and in our daily lives. It's not about judgment or exclusion, it's about love in action. And here's the thing, they're living it out, and they're living it out loud. Thank you. They are the real deal. You are the real deal. Urban Abbey is not just saying the right things or doing the hard work behind the scenes within their congregation as well as out in the open, whether it's showing up at the Capitol, building partnerships, or standing with communities that are too often overlooked and often attacked. Urban Abbey is walking the walk. They're a powerful reminder that faith and political advocacy don't have to be at odds. When rooted in grace and justice, they can actually move us all forward. Urban Abbey is a compelling model of what it means to live out one's beliefs with courage, grace, and a deep sense of responsibility to our neighbors. And their leadership in our community is not only inspiring, it's essential. Rev Deb and her staff is the kind of leader who doesn't just motivate people with words, she actually creates momentum for real lasting change. In a time when so many are feeling disillusioned or disconnected from religion, Rev Deb and the Urban Abbey community are offering us a sense of direction and hope. Her presence in this space brings people together across differences, building coalitions rooted in compassion, justice, and shared humanity. Without her voice at the table and without the tables built here at Urban Abbey, critical conversations about equity, faith, and the type of communities we want to live in would look very differently and frankly, a lot less inclusive. Urban Abbey is helping shape a community where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. And Urban Abbey is so close to my heart because they also want a community where sex education happens. And I'm a sex educator, not just a word on the streets, but it's legit, I have a degree. So I had to bring the sex ed into the space. They have partnered so boldly with the Women's Fund in countless diverse ways in the last decade, always carrying books from our recommended reading list. Please check it out. Also, we have our great condom box with lube. What else have you done? Hosting sex education nights for children and their parents and their caregivers. We have Freedom from Violence community conversations. Also co-creating and building our Emerging Leaders social justice leadership group. And ferociously schooling our elected officials, firmly and gently. Oh, we also like to say, what is it? Gentle pressure, relentlessly applied. Or ferociously, whatever you want to do. Ferociously schooling our elected officials on reproductive rights and gender equity. And I also love how they care deeply for our transgender and non-binary children. That means so much to me. That kind of leadership isn't just nice to have, it's the kind we need right now. We really need. In a world that feels increasingly divided, where so many voices are shouting and so few are truly listening, Urban Abbey is offering something different. Leadership grounded in empathy. Imagine that. Empathy, action, and a deep belief in the common good. They're not waiting for someone else to step up, they're already doing the work. They're showing up for marginalized communities, helping shape more just policies, and reminding all of us what it looks like to lead with both courage and compassion. And again, why is that so rare? It's exactly why there has never been a better time to invest in what's happening at Urban Abbey and the future directions. When you support their work, you're not just supporting a church, you're not just supporting a community, you're fueling a movement. You're saying yes to a future where faith and justice go hand in hand. You're helping amplify a voice in our community that consistently chooses love over fear, dignity over division, and people over politics. This isn't just a good cause, it's a necessary one. So I'm so excited for your future directions and your new space and the collective effervescence that you're going to build there. So thank you so much for your partnership. The Women's Fund thanks you.
It's great to see all of you. Wow. Big audience. I was at the 9 o'clock service and spoke there, so I got really warmed up. I actually forgot about 10 pages there, so today you're going to get the full meal deal. I'll give it all. I'm just kidding, Deborah. She said make it short. So I'm going to shorten it up. Instead, I asked her, I said, what would you like me to talk about today? And she said that she'd like me to talk a little bit about my history with the Abbey, and a little bit about the Capital Campaign, and a little bit about 1516 Jones Street. So first, a little bit about what I believe in and what really guides me. And what really guides me in my rule of life is that things happen for a reason, and everything has a purpose. And so I also see our lives as a great tapestry, and that it's all about the threads in our life. And it's not until we can look back that we see what's being woven in our lives. Lots of times there are things that happen in our lives that are positive, and lots of times there are things that happen in our lives that aren't. But we may ask why at the time, but we keep weaving and we keep moving forward. We have to trust, is what I say. We have to accept the challenges that come into our lives. We have to have faith, and I think one of those things is we practice faith. And all of us who studied music or things when we were in school, and we would get the practice, because practice makes perfect. And so I'm still practicing my faith. I'm not sure I'm perfect yet. I'm a long ways from it. But I think all of us, we have to remember to practice that. And then we have to be grateful at all times to appreciate all of the opportunities, whatever those opportunities are. To be grateful for those. And I think about a verse in 1 Thessalonians, and it says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God. And that's the purpose of our lives, I think, is to try and be a part of that. And finally, to share. And how many of you know this song that goes, make me a channel of your peace? And that's the prayer of St. Francis. And in there's a line that says, it is in giving that we receive. And that's especially important, I think, in my life. I've experienced that over and over and over, that the more we give, the more we receive. And a lot of times, we give something, but we get so much more back than what we put into it. And it reminds me briefly about the rule of life and our rhythm of life. And I've been privileged the Abbey has had several of these sessions and small groups. And if you get a chance to participate in the rule of life, I'd encourage you to do it. Things that matter to me, and I talked about them and learned about them in the rule of life with Pastor Jane and with Cian, great leaders in those groups. And for me, I need to look for things that bring me back to my spiritual core and to the things I really believe in. And so I look for these things, and one of the places I look is in nature. My grandmother, who lived with me, who for almost the last 25 years of her life, taught me all about birds and flowers and trees and nature. And to this day, when I see a small bird or a certain type of bird, it reminds me of her. And it reminds me of the love that we shared. It reminds me of the love that God shares with all of us. And then there's another thing that I learned or in participating in Rule of Life was about things that also will trigger that for me. And one of those is I was reading a book by Rhonda Byrne, and there was a section about gratitude. And in there she put a thing that says, oh, well, put a little rock in your pocket, whether it's polished, whether it's whatever. But when you open your wallet or your pocket and you pull it out, think about it and say thank you, thank you, thank you for all the wonderful things in your life. And it represents gratitude. And for me, I did that. I carried that little rock around for quite a long time. And then there was another event in my life that was sort of one of those where you say it happens for a purpose. And I was privileged to be with a friend of ours and to spend time with him when he was going through cancer treatments. And we were at Methodist Hospital together, and he was going to have one of those long sessions. And I was sitting there, and I thought, I'll go grab a cup of coffee. And while I did that, the circumstance was I decided, I'll go in the little gift shop and just kill time. In that little gift shop, there was a little basket. And in that basket were these little polished rocks in the shape of hearts. And each one of those hearts had a different word on it. And the three little hearts that I bought, one said love, one said hope, and one said joy. And the one that I put in my pocket, and I still carry with me, it says joy on it. And every time I pick it out now, it reminds me of my friend who's no longer with us. He passed away recently, but it reminds me of the joy that I had with the time with him, the last months and weeks of his life. And so it's a happy reminder. That's a part of all of that. And the last thing with that Rule of Life is, for me, it's songs. And so songs, one word, something will trigger something for me, whether someone's singing it, when somebody's saying it. And so every time I hear that, that pops into my head, and it brings me back to what I really believe in and my core. My history with the Abbey, really quickly. I was here before the Abbey because I came to the bookstore, and it was wonderful. I walked in, and Susan had the bookstore coffee shop at the time. There were lots of books at that time, and there was a section all about spirituality, and me and books. Anybody that knows me knows I love books, and she had spirituality and she had cookbooks, so it was the best of all worlds for me. So I could have sit with a cookbook, with a spiritual book, and I could have a cup of coffee. So that was that. And then came my opportunity. I got introduced to the First Church, and that's where I met Pastor Jay and Pastor Deborah. And so that's my weaving going on in the tapestry and finding them, and then hearing about the beginning of the Urban Abbey. And so when I hear the Abbey's going to be meeting in Soul's Desire bookstore, and it's going to be Sunday nights at 5:30, and I'm thinking, that's pretty cool. And some of you, there are a few of you out there that remember almost that far back. But that part of my life was wonderful. And what I found at the Abbey was love, and I found acceptance, I found inclusion, I found compassion, and most of all, I found a message that I believe was really rooted in the biblical teachings. So the Abbey is really my spiritual home, and because of that, we support the Abbey and have now for quite some time. And that brings me then to the next part that Deborah asked me to talk about, and that's the capital campaign. And I feel very privileged to be helping with that in small ways. It's another example of why things happen for a reason. Just a short one, Will and I have some commercial properties and things, and as we're starting to hear about the beginning of the search for a new home for the Abbey, the same time happens for us. We get an unsolicited offer on property that we owned here, and it was a quick, easy transaction. It was part of a goal. Will and I plan each year at the beginning of the year. We do a plan for our lives for that year. And this year, one of ours was to start beginning to simplify life. And so that was one of those opportunities, but it also enabled us to share. And we had an unfounded little pot of money, and so we decided to share that. And we would pledge and actually give the gift early so we could kick off the campaign and get it started. So I hope for all of you, you find those little ways, those little things. Maybe it's a raise, it's a bonus, it's a whatever it is. You decide to have 3 lattes instead of 5 next week, and you've got an extra $10. And you say, I could pledge that to the campaign. It's like Deborah says, it's not about commas, it's not about zeros. It's just about your heart, and it's about your faith, and it's trusting and all of that. So finally, 1516 Jones, where we hope the new abbey will be located. That's a thread that's been in my tapestry for quite some time, because like I said earlier in the 9 o'clock, my tapestry is quite large and quite colorful, because after all these years, it keeps growing bigger and bigger, so I guess that's a good thing. But the thread for me with that address is that it surfaced in my tapestry probably 40 plus years ago, when that building was called The Joy. And it was a dance club at that time for the LGBTQI. Back then it was simply the gay and lesbian community, and that was a place where you could go. And it was a place of welcome. It was a place of acceptance. It was a place of safety. It was fun. It was loving. And it was community. And I think that, as Deborah likes to say, and she did at a recent event, that I was probably the only person she knew who danced at the Joy 40 plus years ago. So anyway, that's that part of it. And today the tapestry is being woven again as this comes back into my life and the building. And I still believe that it will be a place of welcome. It'll be a place of acceptance. It'll be safety. It'll be a place of joy. It'll be a place of fun. And it'll be a community. And it'll be called the Urban Abbey. And I really believe in that. And so when I was preparing all of this message at home and sitting in our solarium and thinking about it, a song popped into my head at the time. And so the song that popped into my head as I was preparing it was, It's a Wonderful World. And I think that for me, that really says what life is all about. And I'm going to share those words with you as I close today. And for those of you who don't know, who are much younger, it was a Louis Armstrong song. And it had great meaning then, and it still does for me. And the words go, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I hope for all of you, the joy and knowing that it is a wonderful world. And I thank you for being a part of it and for being here today and for letting me speak. Thank you.
You can find this narrative in all the Gospels in some way. Listen with me. Now, while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum and the money given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble this woman? She has performed a good service to me. For you will always have the poor with you, but you will not have me. By pouring out this ointment, she has prepared me. Truly I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." For the word of God in us, with us, and through us. Thanks be to God. You can find this moment in every gospel. You can also find in both Matthew and Luke in particular, Jesus saying this woman will be remembered anytime the gospel is shared, anytime the good news is shared, except they leave out her name. The Gospel of John names her as Mary. There's good research that would propose it might be Mary Magdalene, Mary the Magdalene, the tower, the one we look to. But the part I want to lean into for this day is the disciples. Because while there are little differences and little echoes that are kind of changed in each story, in each gospel, the one thing that is always the same is that this alabaster jar is expensive and the ointment is expensive. It's like she took out her 401k and bought it, and then she's pouring it out on Jesus. And the response from the disciples, from the ones who have been following him, from the ones who have been walking, have been getting blisters on their feet, who have been getting real dusty, have been being taught and retaught and corrected and recorrected, they are mad in every single gospel. They cannot. They are upset. They are angry. They give her a hard time. They are bothered by this. It's inappropriate. What is she doing? This wasn't in the plan. This could have been used more wisely. What is this silly woman thinking? What is she doing with her money? Doesn't she know how to spend money? And the thing that happens in every gospel is Jesus tells them to sit down. He's not having it. Every single time Jesus tells them, no. This is so important. Every time the good news is shared, every time communion is shared across the world for 2,000 years, it should be said in remembrance of her. And I think what gets to the heart of it is this worry about generosity. This is a radical, radical moment. And not everyone is prepared for that. The disciples certainly are not in this moment, and I think that's why they are angry and uneasy and upset. Instead of working on their own reflection and on their own selves, they lash out. She's inappropriate. She's not smart. She's using money inappropriately. She's a real problem. She shouldn't even be in here. What is she thinking? This work around generosity takes so much self-reflection that it can be hard. And these disciples weren't ready for what Jesus is asking of them. Not just in terms of financial generosity, but what comes later in the narrative with his death at the hands of the Roman state. Following this way isn't easy. And this is a story that reminds us of it. It is this hard work of generosity that liberates us from all the stuff and from all the pressure and all this work in the world. And it's up to each of us to do that work ourselves, to reflect on what it means and why we're a part of it. In the Gospel of Luke, there's one time when Jesus says, Today, salvation has come to this house. There's one time when Jesus says, someone was saved. And it's not because they prayed the Jesus prayer that they received at an FCA lock-in. There was no pamphlet involved in that whole situation. It is because Zacchaeus, the wee little man and tax collector, you may know him from Songs of Yore, climbs a sycamore tree and invites Jesus to his home. And in that interaction and in those moments, he decides to return, to repatriate to the people he wronged everything he took that he should not have in terms of paying taxes to the Roman Empire. And then he gives away half of everything he owns. Half of the wealth he's built up, half of these walls that he's built in the hope of protecting himself and his family, or feeling like stuff would really make him feel better about everything. And then Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house. It is active, it is actualized, it is something very tangible about how we interact with each other and with the world, and it is about generosity, and not just of spirit, but of practice in every way. And the gift is, we don't have to do that hard work alone. We do it together, we struggle with it together, we work on it together. And in this season, we talk about what we plan to do in the next year. And this year we are planning for something much bigger, where we don't have to worry about having enough chairs or enough room, or if anybody has to sit on the floor, or if the fire marshal is here. And we have begun that planning. And some of you have named your intentions already. And some of you have given early. And I want to share that in that goal, in those advanced pledges, we are at $1.1 million. From this Urban Abbey community. This community that is like a mustard seed that grows and flourishes and makes space. And so as we receive our pledge cards today, I want you to do deep self-reflection. I don't want you to feel pressured or forced or worried. This is about you in discernment of where it feels right, where it feels intentional, where it has meaning. And then next week we will bring those pledge cards and our quilt squares back so we can stitch together a bigger tablecloth for a much bigger table. May we have the courage. May it be so. Amen.